When we join two ends of an I-cord, this tail always gets in the way. So we start by hiding it inside the I-cord. Thread this tail into the wool needle and then run the wool needle from the very tip of the I-cord through the I-cord like this, just inside the cord, not at any side of it, and then out of the cord somewhere, whatever you feel is the good enough distance, and then pull it through like this. Then trim this tail and pull the I-cord to make sure that little tip of the yarn tail hides inside the I-cord. So now that this is done, nothing is gonna stand in our way as we seamlessly join two ends of this I-cord in a circle. So we leave a medium-sized tail when we finish the I-cord. It should be about 30 centimeters, that's 12 inches long. To make it easier for you to see what's going on, I'm going to use the tail in a contrasting color, but of course you will, in most cases, you will use yarn in the same color. Place the I-cord so that you see the purl bumps of the last row of the I-cord, and in this way the yarn tail will be at the right side of the work. So this is our working setup. And now insert the tip of the wool needle from left to right into the first stitch from the tip of the knitting needle, like this. Slip the stitch off the knitting needle and pull the yarn through, but don't pull it too tight. We don't want to make this stitch smaller than it is. Only if it is too loose, because it is the first stitch on the needle, it could get a little bit looser. So in that case, pull a little bit more to make the stitch as big as the rest of the stitches of the I-cord. And then trace this stitch along the I-cord like this. It could be a bit tricky when the I-cord is long, but be diligent and trace the stitch to find the corresponding stitch at the very first row of the I-cord. And now place the I-cord so that it looks like a circle, almost. And then insert the tip of the wool needle under two legs of this stitch that we've just found. And because in this position the I-cord is upside down, the two legs will look like an inverted V, like this, not like a usual V we see when we look for a knit stitch, but like an inverted V. It is right over here. So go under both legs of that stitch from right to left and pull the yarn through. But don't pull it too tight. This seam is a little bit like an embroidery, so we should be very careful about making each strand as long as one leg of an average stitch of the I-cord, because we want the seam to be invisible, right? So the trick here is to make each strand not too big and not too small, so it should be like one leg of the stitch. So about like this is good, I guess, in my case. Then we insert the wool needle from the top down into the same open stitch, and then we go from the left to right into the next stitch on the knitting needle. Slip the stitch off the needle and pull the yarn through, again forming a nice strand over here. So this stitch is gonna look exactly like this stitch and all the rest stitches of the I-cord. And then we do it again and again. So we go under two legs of the next stitch in the first row of the I-cord. Again, it will be an inverted V, not a regular V. Pull the yarn through, form a nice strand over here, and then go top down into the previous open stitch and left to right into the last stitch, in my case, on the knitting needle. I'm gonna put the knitting needle aside, we don't need it anymore, and then we pull the yarn through like this. If your I-cord is wider than 3 stitches, then you will have to repeat these steps again until you join all open stitches to the first row of the I-cord. And we finish with the step when we go under two legs of the corresponding stitch in the first row of the I-cord, like this, and then form this nice strand. The very last step would be to join these two stitches, the last stitch of the I-cord and the first stitch of the last row of the I-cord. So we join them like this, forming a very nice seam. And then we secure the yarn and hide the yarn tail inside the I-cord, just as we did when we hid the tail at the cast on edge. So this is how this seam looks. Of course it is visible because I used the yarn in a contrasting color, but when we use yarn in the same color, you can hardly tell where the seam is. Even I won't be able to tell you, frankly, because I don't remember where it is. And this is the same process that we use when we join stitches of an I-cord bind off, except for the first stitch, for the first step, because we don't have that yarn tail at the cast on edge. When we do the I-cord bind off, then we simply have nothing to hide over there. So this is a very simple process that you can use to join any I-cord edging, or the stitches of an I-cord bind off, to make a fully invisible, as you see over here, fully invisible seam. We have to take a slightly different approach when we join stitches of an I-cord cast on, when we make this I-cord cast on in the round, and we'll discuss this process in the next tutorial. Happy knitting, my friend!